up, guys? Today is World Teaching Day, and I'm here at Miami Ad School, and I'm going to guest speak at a class about wordsmithing. I'm here to talk to you about today's is don't be an idiom idiot. But before that, just don't be an idiot, period. So we've all heard the idiom that nice guys finish last, to which I say, that's not true. The problem with saying that nice guys finish last is that life isn't a race. Life is a cereal. But in all reality, somebody once told me it's just advertising. It's not rocket science. You know, at the end of the day, we're not saving anybody's life. There's no reason to be rude. And actually, last night I saw the Jobs movie, and I'm reading the book too, and he was really an asshole. Like he's like invented some of the greatest things in society, but like he was a dick to a lot of people, you know, and that's not really what your legacy should be ever. So moral story is be nice always. All right, so what's the definition of an idiom? It's basically the figurative meaning of a sentence or a phrase instead of a literal one. So it's the reason why you should learn how to use them is because instead of saying something formally, you can say it in a friendly way. Instead of saying he revealed his secret, I can say he spilled the beans, he let the cat out of the bag. Friendly. So the first type of idioms I want to talk to you about are just straightforward idioms. So it's where the context of an ad allows you to use an idiom the way that it's originally intended. You don't have to change anything about it. So this is an ad that I did for JetBlue. When I was at Mullen, JetBlue and Zappos were two of the biggest clients I worked on. Basically, the way that their headlines are is they like 5 words or less. You have to get right to the point. There's not a lot of room to get super philosophical with the headline. So I turned to idioms as a way to spread their message. So it's always better to be direct. That's an idiom, and it makes sense because they're talking about nonstop. So direct flights, it's an easy get, and it's a true statement. So this is a straightforward idiom. This is another example where later gators. There's nothing particularly that as a copywriter I'm writing. You know, it's not like I'm creating this headline, but this is an existing idiom, and it worked because there were flights leaving Florida. So for people here, it made sense. The context of the ad made sense. The second type of idiom I want to talk to you about is altered idioms. It's when you replace a word in an idiom or you add on a prefix or suffix to change the idiom's meaning. So for example, instead of saying power to the people, they say power saw to the people in this ad for Dexter. So it ain't over till the fat lady sings. It ain't over till the fat lady's skinny. And it's an ad for a gym that partners up with Biggest Loser. So sometimes just changing one word will do that for you. Grab life by the horns. This is a very well-known idiom. Sometimes you could change more than one word about it. As you see in this example, it's grab the night by the junipers. Ready, set, go. Here we have reggae, set, go. So not only are you getting the message that it's like leave right away to go to Jamaica, but because it's Jamaica, we're using the word reggae, and that change of one word makes the ad make sense. In this case, practice makes perfect. Cactus makes perfect. So just sometimes if the word sounds close enough, people will also get it right away. Being in a place where there's cacti will be relaxing. Some of you guys will ask yourself, is this guy fucking serious? We're talking about cactus makes perfect? It's just a big pun. That's a big pun.
Speaking of puns.
Puns are easy to use. That's what people say, right? People also say that girls are easy to draw. That's not the case, always. The reality is that the value of things is not derived from the ease to which it is created, but rather from the effect that it generates, says some guy on Yahoo Answers. But I agree with this guy. Here's an example where this was an ad in Reader's Digest, and The Economist wrote Leader's Digest. They just changed one letter. That had to be done in a second. You know, that's like, it's very easy, but the effect that generated, you're like, oh shit. leaders read this. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I wouldn't dismiss puns. If they're used properly, they can be very smart. They can be very witty. Obviously, there's puns on T-shirts and things like that that are just funny and they're not highbrow, but if you use them, you know, to the best of your ability, I think it's totally fine. So the next time somebody says, why would you use a pun? Why would you use such poor language, say?
Because I would turn being poor into an opportunity. Okay? Trademark.
The next idiom I want to talk to you guys about is extended idiom. So this is when you leave the idiom in its original form, but you add something to it. So you're not trying to switch something out, you're just adding your own commentary. So in this example, given you shall receive, the headline says, given you shall receive, especially if you give it to yourself. And this worked because the strategy basically was we wanted people, when they were online shopping for everybody else on their gift list, to also buy something for themselves. To err is human. So again, we see that they use it. To err is human. To err is unacceptable. So making mistakes is fine, but making typos is not. Somebody that reads The Economist wouldn't make a typo. And it's an example of great headline writing without any need for visuals. It's just a sentence, but it's that strong that it doesn't need a visual. This idiom, under the radar. So they're using, under the radar, which means, of course, like unnoticed. So they're saying under the radar before radars were invented. So speaking to the fact that they're underappreciated, but also they've been around for a long time. Then there's idiom commentary. Sometimes you listen to an idiom and you just make a deeper analysis of what that could mean. So for example, in pack a punch, it means that something strong, impactful. So I thought about it for this apples. I'm like, well, if these shoes pack so much of a punch, then maybe you should wear them on your hands. So obviously that's not something we want you to do, but it's just more of a far-fetched thought. Standing behind something means you support it, you believe in it. In this ad, we stand behind our computers. Unless they're up against the wall, then we just kind of stand next to them. So the beginning of the sentence is the idiom, the figurative language, and then you're literally taking it to like a physical place by saying, well, unless they're up against the wall. Then there's implied idioms. It's when an idea comes from an idiom, but then the idiom itself is not present in the ad. So this is another example for The Economist. But don't throw stones in a glass house. They're assuming that you already know what this idiom is. And they're saying, if you can afford a glass house, you can throw anything you want. Bigger is better. So I actually know the person that did the following ad. I was very lucky to work with him. It's one of my favorites. But basically, he had this thought, bigger is better. Everybody knows that. And he just started thinking about it, well, is it? Because Bruce Lee was just 135 pounds. Goliath lost. So they don't have to spell it out for you that bigger isn't better. It's implied that you know what they're talking about. And there's visual idioms. An idiom can spark a visual idea. So in this example of being hooked, it means, being addicted to something. Naturally, it works for an anti-smoking ad. Caution, this is going to be a little gross. But, so yeah, obviously they're using it to show that people are literally hooked. It's an impactful image. It was a very controversial campaign, actually. But the only thing that pays the ad off is the idiom itself, get unhooked. So without that, this would, imagine without that idiom, it would just be like, stop being addicted. So sometimes using an idiom, help you come up with an advertising idea. In this example, they're using 3 idioms throughout their campaign to bring something to life. So their tagline is, for all other foot problems. And here they're using, when you're putting your foot in your mouth, for all other foot problems. And you see the foot coming out of the guy's mouth. Getting cold feet, for all other foot problems. Walking on your toes, for all other foot problems. So they're not telling you those idioms, but they're assuming you know exactly what they're talking about. And then there's conceptual idioms. This is the holy grail. This is when an idiom is rich enough to inspire a full campaign. So in this example, ignorance is bliss. You won't hear it until the end of the commercial, but I can tell that somebody thought about that and they were like, well, Is it really bliss? Is it not? What are the positive ways that ignorance could be bliss?
Wouldn't life be dull if we knew everything? We don't know why we're here, or why we can only travel one way through time. We can't explain everything about the human mind. We know less about the deepest oceans than we do about the surface of the moon. We don't know what dreams are really for. And if you asked us what came before the Big Bang, honestly, we have no idea. But there is one thing we know for sure. If we had all the answers, there'd be nothing left to discover. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I mean, that just works perfectly for the brands who, if we knew everything, there'd be nothing left to discover. So yeah, ignorance is bliss. And what I like about that is they made a twist. Usually when you say that idiom, it's with a negative context. It's like, I'd rather not know. But this is like, yeah, it's good not to know because then we can keep finding things out. So I thought that was smart. So this next example, in the doghouse. So this phrase inspired the whole campaign. They made a visual gag out of it. I don't know if you guys have seen the JCPenney doghouse commercials at all, but instead of saying, this guy's in trouble with his wife, you say in the doghouse. It's more colloquial, and this led to an entire 360 integrated campaign.
Here it is. Okay.
This is my anniversary gift?
Yep.
A vacuum cleaner?
Dual bag. This is the best vacuum cleaner you'll ever have, baby.
Get in there.
What? Not a big fan of that look. I gotcha.
New arrival in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is this place?
You are in the doghouse.
The doghouse?
Since time immemorial, when men have messed up, they get sent here by their wives or girlfriends. Bold.
Yeah, but I don't deserve to be here. I didn't do anything.
Every man in the doghouse thinks he's innocent. Isn't that right, boys?
Is there any hope? Can you get out of here?
One man got out.
Express
Arnold.
your feelings. Help with the cooking. Stop checking out other women in restaurants.
He sent us this.
Offer to change diapers.
Arnold's wife let him out of the doghouse. Not sure how he did it.
Basically you can see how far they went to the idiom of doghouse. They literally created the doghouse. It was kind of a jail. They did trials, they're all inmates. It's a lot of fun. And if you went to that website, bewarethedoghouse.com, you can put friends into the doghouse. They had like the whole JCPenney jewelry collection that shows you how you can get out of the doghouse. And what I love about it, it was entertaining content, and they didn't even mention JCPenney in it. It was at the end they show you like the jewelry part. So this is basically the process. Every time that somebody would ask me to write a headline, let's say for example, write a headline for Flights to Florida, I start a word map, like what are words related to Florida? Palms, beaches, heat, sun, etc. And then I Google that word with the word idiom next to it. So for example, sun idioms. That'll bring me to this page. Go to bed with the sun. Okay, not sure about that one. Happy is the bride that the sun shines on. Also, I'm not sure about that one. When you're looking at the idioms, you have to really take into account, are other people going to know what I'm referring to? For the most part, none of these work except the last one, where the sun don't shine. I'm like, okay, that's common. I've heard that a bunch of times. So maybe it could be, instead of where the sun don't shine, fly where the sun does shine. I'm not saying that's a great headline, but that's an example of how you can turn an idiom into something that could work. So yeah, I would like for you guys just to do that exercise now. Think of a brand, and it'd be good, of the brands that you presented, pick one of those two, and take 15, 20 minutes to just write an idiom-inspired headline.